Hello, welcome back to Kim Reads as we continue with Kit Learns a Lesson. Chapter 2, Pilgrims and Indians. As they walked to school that morning, Kit told her best friend Ruthie about changing her wish for Dad. The girls huddled under Ruthie's umbrella. They ignored Stirling, who trailed along them like a puny, pitiful puppy. "I didn't realize a wish had to be so specific," said Kit. "Oh yes," said Ruthie. "You have to be very careful what you say in a wish. Otherwise, it'll come true, but not in the way you meant it to. That happens a lot in fairy tales." Ruthie had read hundreds of fairy tales because she was interested in princesses. Also, you usually have to work hard to deserve a wish to come true. You have to do something brave, or impossible, or make a giant noble sacrifice. And you have to wait. Wishes take time. Years in some cases. "Thanksgiving is only 2 weeks from now," said Kit. "I'm afraid if Dad doesn't get a job here by then, he'll move away to Chicago." "Chicago," repeated Ruthie. "He might as well go to the moon." "I don't want Dad to leave," said Kit. "I want the boarders to leave." Ruthie tugged on one of the straps of Kit's bag and tilted her head towards Stirling. Kit realized that once again she had spoken without thinking. She was pretty sure that Stirling already knew she wanted him and the other boarders to leave. Still, it was a nice thing to say in front of him. Kit wouldn't have had to if she remembered that he was there. He was just so invisible. All morning at school, Kit tried not to think about how awful it would be to watch the boarders sitting around the table gobbling Thanksgiving turkey if she knew Dad was going to leave. She could hardly bear listening to Roger, a show-offy boy in her class, answering a question about the first Thanksgiving that their teacher, Mr. Fisher, had asked. "The first Thanksgiving was in 1621, said Roger. "The Pilgrims invited the Indians to a feast to celebrate their harvest. We have turkey at Thanksgiving because the Pilgrims served the Indians 4 wild turkeys, and we call it Thanksgiving because the Indians were thankful to the Pilgrims for being so generous in sharing their food." Kit couldn't stand it. She shot her hand up in the air and waved it. "Yes, Kit," said Mr. Fisher. "Roger's got the story backwards. It's called Thanksgiving because the Pilgrims gave feast to thank the Indians." Roger snorted. Kit wasn't the least intimidated by Roger. "The Pilgrims would have starved to death if it weren't for the Indians," she said. "The Indians taught the Pilgrims to plant corn and gave them supplies and help. I think that was pretty nice of the Indians, considering the Pilgrims were barged into their land when they've been happily living by themselves for a long time." As Kit spoke, she realized that this year, more than ever, she had tremendous sympathy for the Indians. She knew how it felt to have a bunch of strangers living with you and eating your food and expecting your help when you didn't want them there in the first place. "Well," said Mr. Fisher, "thank you, Kit." It made Kit feel a little better to have pleased Mr. Fisher. She liked him, but they had gotten off on the wrong foot the first day of school when Mr. Fisher called on Kit to read aloud in reading group. Kit hadn't known what page they were on because she had read ahead and was busy thinking up better endings to the stories. Mr. Fisher was cross with her then, but he was happy with her now. "Kit makes a good point," he said. "The Indians took pity on the Pilgrims and shared what little they had. It's important to help both friends and strangers when times are hard. We see this all around us today because of the Depression. Who gave us examples of ways that our families and friends and neighbors are helping one another and strangers too?" "When hobos come to our back door," said Ruthie, "my mother always gives them sandwiches and coffee." "At our church there's a box of old shoes for people to take if they need them," said a boy named Tom. "My cousin sent me a winter coat she outgrown," said a girl named Mabel. Kit was surprised to see Stirling raise his hand. He had almost never done so before. Stirling was new to the class and the school because he had moved into Kit's house only last summer. He didn't know anyone but Kit and Ruthie, and he was so quiet he was easy to forget. "Sometimes people get kicked out of their house because they can't pay rent," Stirling said in a deep voice that almost surprised Kit, coming as it did from such a pipsqueak. And friends are nice enough to invite them to their house with them. Oh, so that's why you live with Kit, brayed Roger. I thought you two were married. The class snickered as Roger made kissing noises. Stirling slouched in his seat. Kit shook her fist at Roger, but she was mad at Stirling too. Stirling should have kept his mouth shut, she thought. That will do, Roger, said Mr. Fisher. I'll wait for quiet, boys and girls. He waited until the snickering stopped, then asked, Who can give me more examples of how we're helping one another? Soup kitchens serve free meals to the people who can't buy food, said a girl named Dorothy. And some soup kitchens also give people groceries to take home to their families. Yes, said Mr. Fisher. Now, as you all know, Thanksgiving is coming soon. I'd like our class to do its part in helping the hungry. So if you can, please bring an item of food. It doesn't have to be anything big. An apple or potato will do. I know most of us don't have much food to spare, but if we all chip in, we can make a Thanksgiving basket and donate to the soup kitchen. The students murmured among themselves, but without much enthusiasm. They'd all seen soup kitchens with long lines of people waiting outside them. Kit had once seen a man in a suit line faint on the street from hunger. She knew that soup kitchens were for people who had been without work for so long they had no money or hope or pride left, and who were so desperate that they had to accept free food. My father says that the people who go to soup kitchens should be ashamed, said Roger, full of bluster. They're bums. They're not bums, said Ruthie. Most of them are perfectly nice, normal people who happen to be down on their luck. I think we should feel sorry for them. My father says they're just too lazy to work, said Roger, and now that Franklin Roosevelt's been elected, people expect the government to take care of them. My father says it'll ruin our country. Kit grew hot under the collar, listening to Roger and thinking of how hard Dad is trying to find a job. People aren't too lazy to work, she said. They'd work if they could find a job, but jobs are hard to find. Mr. Fisher nodded. Right here in Cincinnati, he said, one out of 3 workers is unemployed, which means they don't have a job. 1 out of 3. What fraction is that? 1/3, said Tom. That's correct, said Mr. Fisher. 1 out of 3, thought Kit. Unemployment was a lot worse than she thought. Just for a shivery second, her absolute confidence that Dad would find a job in Cincinnati was shaken a little bit. Maybe he really would have to go to Chicago. Then Kit spoke to herself firmly. No, she thought, Dad is different. He will find a job. Any day now. He said so. These are hard times, said Mr. Fisher. That's why it's so important to remember the example of the Indians and the Pilgrims. We all have friends or relatives who are struggling to make ends meet. This year, many of us will have to do without some of the things we've had in the past. But Mr. Fisher, Mabel asked, we're still going to have a Thanksgiving pageant this year, aren't we? Yes, of course, said Mr. Fisher. Now the class buzzed with excitement. Everyone loved the pageant. Mr. Fisher crossed his arms. I need your attention, boys and girls, he said. The children shrugged one another, and Mr. Fisher continued. The 6th graders will be the Pilgrims, he said. The 5th graders will be the Indians. Our 4th grade is responsible for the scenery. Mr. Fisher held up a drawing. Here's a drawing of the backdrop we'll paint. The drawing showed 4 giant turkeys and a huge cornucopia with fruits and vegetables spilling out. The turkey feathers were all different colors and not just painted on. They were made out of bits of paper cut out to look like real feathers, and they were glued onto the turkeys. That's good, said Tom. Yes, it is, isn't it, said Mr. Fisher. Who drew it, asked Dorothy. Stirling, said Mr. Fisher. Everyone twisted around to stare at Stirling. For the second time that day, Stirling slouched down to sleep, but in this time no one was snickering. Everyone, including Kit, was gaping at Stirling in astonishment. At lunch, Ruthie said, Stirling is really good at drawing, isn't he, Kit? Kit shrugged. I guess so, she said. She was still annoyed when Stirling was speaking in class and embarrassing her in front of everybody. Shh, said Dorothy. Here he comes now. Stirling was walking toward Kit, his knickers ballooning out over his spindly legs. Kit and Stirling had to share a lunch tin, and every day Stirling came over to the girls' side of the lunchroom to get a sandwich from Kit. Usually the girls at the table completely ignored Stirling, but today when he came over, several girls squeaked, "Hi, Stirling." Stirling blushed pinker than ever. "Hi," he said. He took his sandwich and scuttled back to the boy's side. Unfortunately, Roger had spotted Stirling with Kit. He began to whistle, "Here Comes the Bride." Kit glowered at Roger, who batted his eyelashes at her from across the room. "Hey, Kit," said Ruthie, trying to distract her. "Good news. Here's some wood left over from our new garage. My father said that you and I can use it for our tree house." "That's great," said Kit. She had been sketching tree houses and hoping to build one ever since she had read Robin Hood. She loved the tree house that Robin and his men built high in the branches of the trees in Sherwood Forest. Kit knew her family had absolutely no money to spend on something as unnecessary as wood for a tree house, so it was lucky that Ruth's father, who still had a job, was giving away the leftover wood. "I was thinking," said Ruthie, "you know how your treehouse sketches haven't turned out very well?" "Yes," Kit admitted honestly. "Well, why don't you ask Stirling to draw a plan for us?" asked Ruthie. "No," said Kit. "Gosh, Ruthie, if we let him plan our treehouse for us, then when he'll want to come over and we'll have to let him in. He's already invaded my real house. I don't want him in our treehouse too." Okay, said Ruthie. "Don't get all worked up. The treehouse doesn't even exist yet." "I'll ask Dad to help us," said Kit. "He loves building things." "Sure," said Ruthie. She grinned. "And he'll be so busy building our treehouse, he'll forget all about going away." Kit grinned back. "Right," she said. "How soon can we get the wood?" And that's the end of that chapter. See you later.